In tech matters, the shift to proactive security measures. This week, FireEye launched a pair of new services focused on red team operations and penetration testing. Meanwhile, the Office of Management and Budget released its annual FISMA report to Congress. The report shows many federal agencies are still struggling to wrap their arms around basic cyber controls. For more, I'm joined by Tony Cole, Vice President and Global Government CTO for FireEye. Tony, let's start with your big announcement. Before we dig in, bring us up to date. What are red team operations and how does penetration testing work?
So Morris, I will tell you that we've seen penetration testing take place for a long period of time where people would find the vulnerabilities in their operating systems, their network perimeter, and many of their devices across the board, compile that into a large report, and quite often put that in a drawer and do nothing with it. So the change that we're trying to drive is much like the U.S. military and many other militaries are starting to do, and that's actually with a red teaming approach, where we find those vulnerabilities in those same operating systems, network perimeter, so applications, browsers, and we actually compromise them and show them that those vulnerabilities are real and can actually lead to a significant compromise inside someone's system.
Now, your competition is also moving in that direction. Here's how FedScoop put it. The new offerings are part of a trend toward a more holistic and realistic approach to cybersecurity, as opposed to static documentation of security protocols and vulnerability scans, especially in the government sector, which has traditionally relied on these less dynamic measures. Now, I'm curious, what less dynamic measures will this replace, Tony, and what are federal agencies wasting their money on?
Well, a lot of them are still actually going through and doing those manual vulnerability assessments, which are very important, but nevertheless, if you've identified a number of holes in your environment, so in the cyber realm, then it's important to actually assure that nobody has actually already come through those holes inside your environment. That's why our red team operations piece is important, where we actually add an individual inside a security response team so they can work with the existing team to actually show them how to make sure nobody compromises those identified vulnerabilities in the system.
Last Friday, the Office of Management and Budget delivered its annual FISMA report to Congress. 9 large agencies, including the Treasury, Commerce, and State Departments, posted failing scores. Many of them struggle with even basic security controls. Meanwhile, cyber attacks are on the rise. They jumped 10% in 2015 to more than 77,000 a year. What do you make of this report?
It's very interesting that we're continuing to see these challenges for the U.S. government and many others out there. And you have to wonder, when you see the increasing level of incidents that take place, is it a rising level of incidents, or is it better identification of existing incidents that have been continuous that we simply didn't know about previously? I think it's important for them to understand they need to move forward and look at this as an evolving threat, and put the right measures in place to actually stop these successful attacks. That means looking at advanced malware attacks. Many of these same agencies failed to look at any attachments coming across in email, which is the biggest threat vector that we continuously see compromised by attackers.
Yeah, I think you're right. A combination of both more reporting, more incidents. President Obama considers cyber to be one of the most important economic and national security challenges facing the U.S. Last month, he announced the Cybersecurity National Action Plan. This week, the Commerce Department announced Kirsten Todd will spearhead part of that effort, serving as Executive Director of the Commission on Enhancing National Cybersecurity. Will all of these moves help, or is government studying too much, Tony, and moving too slowly?
They're definitely moving too slowly, but I do think a lot of these efforts are going to be very helpful to the next administration as they move forward. It's a matter of looking at the recommendations that come from all the experts that they put together in these commissions, and then move forward with it in a very, very fast way. The attackers are continuing to try to break into these systems. They're not waiting for new systems to be modernized, to roll out the antiquated stuff, and to put new methods in place to actually identify these attacks. So the recommendations must be taken and looked at quickly and implemented across the federal government if they're going to actually have some modicum of success.
Before you go, I'd like to hit one more hot topic: Apple and the FBI. This week, the judge in the San Bernardino case canceled a hearing after the government said an unnamed third party had come forward with an alternative to Apple's assistant. That method is being tested. Put this into context for us.
So It's very interesting to see that the FBI has changed their mind and actually asked the judge to put a hold on the hearing. I think it's really critically important that we understand everything is vulnerable. Everything that we interconnect to the internet is going to be vulnerable. There's one way or another in. I think we're seeing a couple different things. One, we didn't see a lot of hackers actually want to jump into the fray because they didn't agree with the FBI and their methodology for actually trying to break into this phone by forcing Apple to do it. I think the better piece that we could see out of this is hopefully this will happen, that FBI will get access to it via help from another third party, and this will move to Congress and allow Congress to actually build some legislation that is actually a better degree, better measure across the board, where we look at civil liberties and we're actually looking at safety as well and find that happy medium.
It's good to have you with us. Tony Cole, Vice President and Global Government CTO for FireEye. Thanks, Tony.
Thank you, Morris.